right, welcome in Wednesday again, Megan, and that means Jesse and Megan. And we have a very special guest kicking off today's show. The new Eagles head coach, the newest head coach. I guess I don't know the most appropriate way to say it. Colorado Eagles head coach Aaron Schneekloth will be joining us here momentarily to talk about his new gig. We may even ask a little bit about the hire of Steve Konowalchuk and just get into a bit about the Eagles and a little bit of a new look for them this year. And then we are going to talk about the Eagles a bit today. But I guess, Megan, how are you doing this afternoon, morning?
I'm doing really well. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks. It's really nice out right now. I think I see the look on your face. You already know. It's gonna get bad. I think
I'm
here
looking at the weather app.
in the after. Are you like me? Are you living on the radar? Has anybody been doing this? Like they have in the Weather Channel app, you can now get live satellite radar of the weather.
Oh, no, but my phone's been good about sending me updates when it's about to rain in like the next 15 minutes. And
Hey, get inside now.
Right,
Yeah.
and it's rain. But it is upsetting still.
Yeah. No, but I've been living on that satellite radar. So again, nice weather right now. But let's talk a little bit about Aaron Schneekloth. You got to know him a bit last year. You were kind of ahead of this. AJ actually also wrote a piece about it before Greg Cronin was officially hired by the Anaheim Ducks. And then it was a little bit of a gap in between that and Schneekloth officially getting the promotion. But just what were kind of your initial thoughts, impressions when the official announcement was made?
No shock whatsoever because he's such a natural fit to be the head coach for the Colorado Eagles. He's been so deeply embedded in the Eagles starting from the time when he was a player.
Yeah.
And so he's grown with the Eagles as they've become now an American League team as player, coach, now the opportunity to be a head coach. And at least at the coaching level specifically, there was early on success that he had a hand in bringing them to back-to-back championships at the East Coast level. And so I think it was interesting to see the path that he followed. Learning from Cronin was probably something I'm especially interested to hear about because there are unique qualities that he has that makes him apt to be the coach of the Eagles, but I'm sure too in his time working with Cronin and the entire staff that's up there, he's especially primed for this position. He knows what culture is for Colorado Avalanche specifically because he has been embedded in it for so long. He has a working relationship with the people who are overseeing this whole thing with McFarland and the latest hire, McDonald. And so I don't think there's going to be much transition period in terms of the vision for what the Eagles need to be next year. And I think that's really important for them because he knows exactly what direction they want this entire organization to go. And I'm excited to see what he does next and how he plans to get them there even closer.
Well, I mean, you really kind of just kept touching back on it. And I think it's an important point about the familiarity with the organization, because that is something that I feel is preached so much, even at the NHL level, and then we've heard Jared Bednar in past talk about how he and Greg Cronin work so closely. And I'm sure that means, the coaching staffs in general. But again, this is not to take anything away from Schneekloth and what he's done, what he's accomplished as a coach, and within the Eagles organization. But it really did just seem like such a natural fit. You get it. You understand. You've been here. It really would have been, I don't necessarily know what the right word, to pass on Aaron Schneekloth in this situation and bring in someone externally wouldn't have felt right, given everything that you just kind of laid out in terms of what he's done and what he's experienced with the organization.
And Cronin described how closely everyone worked together, Branham, Schneekloth, Budai to a different extent, and then the development staff too, in working with the prospects specifically, but honestly the entirety of the organization being focused on growth and teaching. And that's a lot of Cronin that's influenced there, but make no mistake that Schneekloth plays a role in that especially. And it would have been a mistake to pass on him because he has had a hand in the development of young and old defensemen that have come through Colorado. And the growth in their games has been so observable that whatever happened next for Schneekloth, if not for the head coaching position, I imagine he was not long for a promotion somewhere. And that's why I'm excited for him to have the opportunity to put his name alongside any of the accomplishments moving forward. He will get full credit for that and full creative license too, to do with what he pleases, how he wants to shape this team.
Well, and there's so much talk about development and things like that within the Avalanche organization, right? Like they've gotten beat over the head pretty good by the fan base in the last few years about not being able to develop talent. And while I think that has gotten so much better in terms of players on the ice, I actually think we've maybe glossed over, and I know coaches aren't executives, but how much internal promotion there has been in that area over the last couple of years for the Avs in major key positions. Obviously Chris McFarland, now Aaron Schneekloth, and they've really liked to keep the band together. And again, I think that translates to what you're seeing on the ice relative to what you're talking about in terms of player development, player growth, and then just culture. I'm sure this is something that we are going to hear from Schneekloth a lot. Culture. Jared Bednar talks about it. Greg Cronin talked about it. And it's about having that consistent feel from the American League level through to the NHL level. And that when you're going from one to the other, there's no surprises. You know what to expect. You know what is expected of you. You know what role you're supposed to play. And again, I just think it's interesting how translatable that is to also the coach and the executive side of it, where, hey, Aaron Schneekloth, you know what to expect as an AHL head coach because you've been here, you've been in the meetings, you've seen what it takes, you've talked to Greg Cronin, you've talked to Jared Bednar. This makes sense. Like you said, he would have gotten a promotion elsewhere, and that seems to be a recurring theme with coaches, management within the Avalanche organization. If we don't promote these guys, someone else will, and we're going to lose them. And so again, you said it would have been a mistake to pass on Aaron Schneekloth, and I agree. Obviously, he's now got to go out and put the results on the ice and all of that, but I'm with you. I think it would have been a mistake to let someone else take a run at someone that you've invested time and money and development into.
I only laughed because of each offseason, the number of players that seem to be scooped by an organization. Like the year before last, Milwaukee Admirals targeted players. Now it was the LA Kings taking players. But it points to, and honestly, even Anaheim watching the waiver wire so closely and getting Megna at that one point in time when no one was expecting it, teams are watching.
Yeah.
Teams are watching the Colorado Eagles because they are affiliated with the Colorado Avalanche, and they are a recent Stanley Cup championship team. There are a lot of eyes on Colorado as an organization, and so that is why it is important that Schneekloth get this promotion.
I mean, again, another great point. There's a lot of eyes on the organization. People are saying, these guys are doing something right. We want to emulate that, so let's pull as many people out of there as we can. Again, going back to the example of Chris McFarland, the Avs had to deny a couple teams the opportunity to interview him, and when you saw that they weren't providing that permission, it was a pretty good tell that they were going to be promoting him. But again, just an example of, hey, you've been working under Joe Sakic. Every move that you guys are making is turning to gold. We want some of that. I'd have to imagine there's some of that going on with the Eagles. Because again, for as much of a hard time as the Avs have gotten in recent years about not being able to develop players, they have had several very successful AHL seasons. You've had a bunch of players that have turned into NHLers, been legitimate call-ups, like you said, waiver wire pickups elsewhere. I think you and I have been pounding the drum a bit of, I don't think people are quite giving the Avalanche organization, specifically the Eagles, enough credit for what they are doing with prospects and American League players and stuff at that level.
And it's because of the prospect conversation that stresses people out, but we can dive into that a little bit later.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And again, it's interesting to see the way that not only the Avs are functioning, but the way that other teams, other organizations see how they function.
Absolutely.
And are wanting to emulate that. And so got to make sure you're taking care of your people within the organization.
Absolutely.
All right, and now we are joined by the Colorado Eagles head coach, newly announced Aaron Schneekloth. Coach, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time out. And I guess just what has these last few weeks been like, kind of getting settled into your new chair there?
Yeah, it's to be honest, it's been pretty busy. We've had to make some new hires. Obviously, it was announced yesterday. Steve Konowalchuk is going to join the staff. He's going to be a huge asset to this organization. We've hired a new video coach and recently just hired a new head athletic trainer. So a new staff and just communicating with them as much as possible about the upcoming season.
How much do you, when you move into a new role like this, how much do you coach, be in contact with guys like Jared Bednar, Joe Sakic, CMAC at the NHL level? And because I know Jared has talked to us a bunch about his relationship with Greg Cronin, how often they're kind of communicating. Have you started any of that, in these last couple of weeks? Or are you just trying to get settled at the AHL level right now?
Oh, yeah. Recently, I'm just getting settled here up in northern Colorado, but have, daily communications with Kevin McDonald, our GM, have spoken with Chris and Jared, and that'll intensify as we get closer to the season.
Yeah.
You mentioned a new video coach. I was just curious. Cronin used to talk all the time about Petro and how closely he worked helping with video, and that came in clutch last year in bringing on some of the PTO players when it was absolutely necessary. Is that someone that's going to work alongside Petro into next season?
Yeah, so Steven has stepped away from the organization. He's going to go back to school, take a master's program. So we've hired someone to replace Steven. Obviously, he's got huge shoes to fill with the amount of work that Petro's done for this organization the last 5 years that I've been working with them. So we've got a new video coach that's going to take on a bunch of those responsibilities and try and fill that void as best as possible.
Tell me a little bit about your approach to coaching. How do you want to lead the Eagles?
Well, I mean, obviously it was extremely beneficial working with Greg the last 5 years, and to be given responsibility by him that with his experience at every level, and he's been doing this such a long time. I've taken a lot from Greg, but first and foremost, I'm going to be myself. I'm going to be honest and upfront with the players, and we're going to continue to play with the identity that this team has played with not only the last 5 years, but since I've been a part of this organization.
You mentioned Greg and we were talking about Chris McFarland a minute ago, and now yourself. We've seen a lot of folks within the Avalanche organization get promotions or be tapped by other teams. What do you think it is about this organization right now that so many other groups are looking at and saying we want to emulate that, and are looking to you guys as kind of the example? And the Avs are kind of in a situation where we need to either promote or we're going to lose some of these guys because whether it be yourself, Chris McFarland, Greg Cronin, if we don't promote and keep our own guys, someone else is going to.
Well, I think a lot of that attributes to the success the organization has had the last 5 years, obviously with the Avalanche winning the Stanley Cup, and then the outstanding job that Greg has done here with the Eagles once they transition to the American Hockey League. It says a lot about, how hard this organization, the people in it work. And I think it's outstanding that people are getting recognized and getting opportunities to move up.
Tell me about what it meant to you. You've been deeply embedded in this organization, years behind the bench, and then years spent in an Eagles jersey yourself. What did this opportunity mean to you, specifically earning it within this organization?
Well, I mean, that was obviously the goal. When I transitioned from playing to coaching, I spent 3 years as an assistant and was able to take over as a head coach for 2 years and had a lot of success in the ECHL level. And then obviously the transition to the American League, being able to learn and grow under Greg. This opportunity came along and I had, Greg's blessing to take over. He thought I was the right person for the job, and obviously very thankful to the Avalanche management staff to giving me this opportunity. I've invested a lot of time in this organization, so I've got a lot of pride here, and this is home for my family. So to be able to step into this position and not have to move my family is obviously a huge blessing.
It's something that people forget a lot, that how much it affects on the human side and families and things like that. It's a great point. Coach, you mentioned a minute ago that you've taken a lot from Greg Cronin, and I know Megan got to know him a bit last year, and I talked to him a handful of times. What would you say is maybe the one biggest takeaway that you had just from your time with Coach Cronin?
Well, there's so many. I mean, one, his preparation and attention to detail on a daily basis. He's always working to make the players better every single day. So that's one thing. Like, his work ethic is off the charts, and I'm just extremely proud and excited that he's getting the opportunity at the NHL level to lead a club up there. He's definitely earned it with his hard work, and obviously the time he's spent at every position leading up to this point. So that's obviously one. I learned a lot from him on the player development side. Having his individual meetings and team meetings about how he really dug into the personal side of the player to build some trust with them. So um, I've taken so much from Greg. I owe him a lot of my growth here as a coach. And obviously, there's other people I can put in that category too. But working
Sure.
side by side with Greg the last 5 years and earning his trust, and obviously, as the years went on, he had given me a lot of responsibility that I feel has made me ready for this position.
Now, I want to go back a little bit because you mentioned there off the top the announcement yesterday of bringing on Steve Konowalchuk. Obviously, you know, he played for the Avs for a couple of years, but what is bringing in a guy like that to the organization? Obviously, aside from what he's going to do in terms of coaching, being on the bench, stuff like that, what does he bring to the organization that you guys are excited about?
Well, one, I think what we were really looking for is someone who can really dive into the development of our young forward group. And obviously, you know, he's just shy of 800 games played in the National Hockey League. He's been an assistant coach in the NHL, head coach in the Western Hockey League, a scout in the NHL. So he's got a broad range of skills that he's um, taken on after his playing career. And so he's going to step in. He's going to work with our forward group and with our power play. So his experience alone is really going to help these young prospects hit their potential.
The power play was something you previously worked on, and you also worked really closely with the defensemen. What does that look like moving forward? Will you still have some of that hands-on, one-on-one with the players? Will someone like Branham step into that role a little bit more?
Yeah, Tim will step into that role, and he'll run and work with the defenseman and continue with the penalty kill. Obviously, I'm going to be in a position to oversee both, working with the defense and the forwards, and we'll collaborate on both specialty teams. And so that's what I'm really looking forward to, is working with these two um, colleagues and friends, and really try to continue to add the growth that we've established here the last 5 years. We've got a really strong foundation with our development plan, and now we're just looking to add on, you know, in every area and department for the players, give them all the resources they can handle, to from our strength and conditioning coach, to our equipment managers, to our athletic trainers, to our video staff. Just give them every resource possible so they can continue to grow and develop, and have that seamless transition for call-ups, and then hopefully a few of them can go on and be full-time NHL players.
You mentioned colleagues and friends a second ago, and a sentiment that Cronin talked about a lot is community. He talked about you and Branham specifically being integral to the community that's established there in Loveland. And I was curious, from your perspective, how you feel about the culture that's been built with the Eagles.
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier. Like when I came in as a player and transitioned to a coach, I went from the Central Hockey League to the ECHL over to the American Hockey League, and that's one thing that's kind of always stayed status quo, is the culture we've had, our investment in the community, the tightness of the bond of our players and our staff. I think it's extremely important in terms of building a successful organization, a successful team on the ice. So there's no question, like, we're going to continue to build on that. We're not going to lose track of who we are, and how we're perceived, and our impact in the community here. I think it goes a long ways.
The Colorado Eagles given the award at the end of last season for the best fan experience. We've talked to several call-ups, guys that have come in from other organizations or what have you, that have said that the Budweiser Event Center is without a doubt the best building to play in the American Hockey League. Just what can you say about the fans and just the fan base that's up there?
Yeah, well, one, I've been spoiled. I've been a part of it for so long. It just feels natural and normal to me.
Yeah.
But still, I get those goosebumps on those specialty nights, the pot of gold, the military night, the production that Ryan Bach and his staff put on,
Yeah.
the work they put in to make sure this building is full is incredible. And we've got, knowledgeable, passionate fans that continue to support this team year after year after year. It was our 20th anniversary last season. We had a season ticket holder party, and it was incredible the amount of fans that have been season ticket holders since day one. It just shows how much this hockey club and this organization means to Northern Colorado, and we're just fortunate to be able to play in front of these fans every single night.
How do you feel about how the team has come together this offseason? A lot of new pieces, obviously some departures as well, not only in personnel but in players as well. What is your expectation for the upcoming season?
Well, it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve at the start of the season. Get our new players on board. It was great to see that we had, 5 guys join us at the end of last season. So they've got a good understanding of how things are done here and what the league is about. The new players we have coming in are experienced guys. You've got to accept the fact that that happens in the American Hockey League. There's a lot of movement year after year. Guys are earning contracts and getting different opportunities. And ultimately, your goal is to help these players develop and give them a chance to play in the National Hockey League. But they're going to step into the Eagles locker room and understand that there's a standard here. There's an expectation here of how we want to play, how we're going to compete for us to be successful and for them to be successful.
Coach, you've been very generous with your time, so we're not going to keep much longer. So I got one more for you, kind of relative to all of that. There were so many injuries at the NHL level last year, and that had such a big trickle-down effect on you guys at the AHL level, having to call players up, send players back down, all kinds of different stuff. One, how difficult was that for you guys last year? And two, how much are you looking forward to and hoping for a little bit more of just kind of a regular season here?
Yeah, well, it was difficult at times, but it was a great test, and obviously, management did an excellent job of giving us players when that situation happened, and they were able to step in and play in different opportunities that catapulted their career. Like you look at a player like Cedric Paré, who came in from the ECHL, earned himself a contract last year and this upcoming season, played a huge role on our team and earned himself a chance to get in the spotlight and take on a bigger role this season. So those situations aren't ideal. I think we did a really good job making the most of it, got a lot out of our players. And like I said, they all got opportunities to potentially play in situations and roles that they wouldn't have in the past. So it's a great season for all of us to learn about who we were as coaches, and who these players were and how we could get the best out of them. So it was difficult, but something we were very proud of going through that and being able to have the success we did.
Coach, really, thank you so much. And we were talking, before you jumped on that we always love to see people get opportunities when they're deserving. So thank you so much. And again, congratulations on the new position here.
Thank you, Coach.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Of course, anytime. Thanks, Coach.
You bet.
All right. Eagles head coach Aaron Schneekloth.
I'm so excited for hockey season. That got me very energized.
No, I know. For real, it was exciting to hear him get into all that. And we're going to get into a lot of what he said, but I do want to remind you guys that we are brought to you guys by Circa Sports, Circa Resort, Hotel, because they're pretty much in every category.
They're a lot of things.
Circa's a lot of different things, right? They're mostly Vegas' first ever adults only casino resort, and they have the world's largest sports book. I've been to what was previously the largest sports book in Vegas, and it's like not even close to what they've got going on at Circa. A 3-story stadium-style sportsbook takes 10 people to operate a 78 million pixel screen. We've done a couple events out there recently for DNVR, and they've all looked awesome. We haven't had the chance to go out there yet, but they've all looked great. The sportsbook, the pool, stadium swim is what it's called, 4,000 person capacity, a 143 by 40 foot LED screen. It's open 365 days a year. 6 pools, 2 spas, 15,000 square feet of wet space. And really, it's an unbelievable resort. Like I said, I'm jealous we haven't been able to get out there yet. But hopefully we'll get some opportunities to. It looks great. It looks I've been hearing about it for years. I was super excited when they were announced as a partner because I remember when they opened, I think 2 years ago, still a new resort. There was so much hype around it that the pool area is just like, if you're a sports fan going to Vegas on vacation, like that's the dream, is the pool setup that they've got there at Circa. If you're heading out to Vegas for Broncos and Raiders, Avs versus Knights, Pac-12, Mountain West alumni, book your stay with code DNVR20. You're going to get 20% off your stay at Circa Sports Resort, Hotel, Casino, and download the Circa Sports app at circasports.com. Circa Sports bets can only be made while physically located in the state of Colorado. Must be 21 or older. All rights reserved. Circa Sports Colorado encourages you to gamble responsibly. And of course, if you have a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER or visit problemgamblingcolorado.org. Also brought to you guys by Legal Pete's, our great friends just right down the street with locations in Colorado and Arizona, including one, 2 blocks from here?
It's so
I do
close.
this read every week, and I've never actually officially checked how many blocks away it is.
It might be 2.
I think it's 2.5 blocks just down the street. The best happy hour in town, going all the way till 8 o'clock. Look, we had the Women's World Cup going on this week. I believe Team USA plays tonight. So on your way down to the DNVR bar, stop down at Illegal Pete's, grab a margarita. They got great margaritas. Grab a little bit of chips, some salsa, stay for their happy hour. Then come on down here, cheer on the women's US team, and then go right back to Illegal Pete's because they are open late. Burritos, bowls, fajitas, oh my gosh. Quesadillas. I mean, I guess I'm sure they do have fajita veggies. Yeah, they've got it all. Really, like I said, Illegal Pete's in Colorado and Arizona. If you're coming down to the DNVR bar, it is a must stop. We always get questions. Hey, I'm coming to Colorado. What should I do? Make time to get some lunch down at Illegal Pete's. Get in on there. Great happy hour. Also brought to you guys by Breckenridge Brewery, the official beer of DNVR. We have beers on tap downstairs. We got Palisade Peach, Strawberry Sky. It is summer. We were all sad talking right before about how summer is winding down, but it is still nice weather out. Get out onto the patio, get a Palisade Peach, Strawberry Sky, a Mountain Beach. Those are some of my favorite lighter, crisper ones for the summer. But they are available now in all 50 of the United States. Use the Breck Beer Locator at breckbrew.com to find where they're being sold nearest you. Or again, if you're coming down to the DNVR bar, we have tons of them on tap here. They also have the Farmhouse, not far from the DNVR bar. I know they've got stuff going on for the Women's World Cup as well. Great outdoor area. It's where we did our Stanley Cup party last summer. So if you've been there before, it's a great venue. They have a spot up front where you can buy all their beers, try them all on tap, all of that. It's great. So breckbrew.com, use the Breck Beer Locator, or if you're here locally or you're stopping in town, stop down at the Farmhouse or get one of their beers while you are here at the DNVR bar. We've got them on tap. Megan, I'm not going to lie to you. That was not going to be my last question. My last question was going to be your last question, so I had to scramble because I want to know what the expectations were for this Eagles team. Because I remember when they were moving from the ECHL to the AHL, we were all worried because Eagles fans have gone a long time without seeing playoff hockey. They were a perennial playoff team in the ECHL. We were worried that stepping into the American League, the Avs AHL teams hadn't been great. But as Schneekloth alluded to, they have built something really great here in 5 years, haven't missed the playoffs yet. What did you kind of take of, what he talked about there? And he kind of danced around giving hard expectations on, we want to do this, want to do that. Focus so much on, we want to make sure we have players ready for the NHL.
Well, and I don't blame him for not nailing down the expectation because he went into pretty generous detail about some of the changes that are going to be happening for the Eagles. And with those changes becomes a little bit of unpredictability.
Totally.
But I think in the best way, because the fundamentals that have brought them the success are still in place. The core parts, the tenets of community that he echoed in the interview, some of the staff too that has been a part of what's being built in Loveland, and then obviously the lessons learned from working alongside someone like Cronin are all still there. So those constants are good. But with some of the changes that are being brought about, I think the expectation is fairly higher, but with the learning curve that he alluded to, because I think there is going to be quite a transition period for a lot of different reasons. There's going to be a little bit of a new look on special teams, particularly with the power play. There's going to be a different look too in what the forward group honestly even looks different on paper. Because I think in the past they've targeted players that are just prolific at the American League level. It's like the Kiefer Sherwoods and the Dylan Sakuras. I actually think the look that they targeted in this offseason has struck a lot more balance. And I think that this is where, when we see players like Shane Bowers or Oscar Lawson get buried on the third or fourth line at times, there's always panic. Sampo Ranta being a part of that as well. But now I feel a little bit more comfort that the forward group is going to be more balanced. And so this is one change that's brought about. There's obviously a new head coach. There's a new video coach on the way. I think this is all going to bring about growth and forward movement. Not that I think things were getting stagnant by any means, because year by year, the team improved. Even last year, when they had 53 different players rotating in and out of the lineup, they still finished almost exactly like wins percentage, place in the standings, exactly as they had the year before. And so in recognizing the context of how difficult last season was, that's quite an accomplishment. So I feel like they're trending in the direction of improvement, but I have some faith that it's going to break upwards even more than we've seen before.
Also, I want to go back to what you were just saying, because we talked about that with the Avs last year, that what they did was really impressive, given the injuries and the different players in and out of the lineup.
Division.
To win their division was very impressive. And I think you can say the same thing for the Eagles. Obviously, they didn't win their division and any of that, but finishing almost identically to where they were before, given how much calling up, sending down, ECHL players coming up, oh, we just lost this guy, they're called up to the Avs for long stretches, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. For them to finish where they were, I think is really impressive. And I think that was another reason why I feel like it was so important to keep that level of familiarity by promoting Schneekloth to that head coach role, because to your point, we're clearly on the right track here. There's clearly an upward trajectory. If we can get a season where, just like the Avs, if our players can just play, we feel really good about where we're at. And I think he alluded to that.
It can only go up from last year by comparison. And there's a lot of changes on the way, in addition to some of the important constants, like you mentioned, in sticking with Schneekloth, who has been with the organization, having Branham still there. And I'm excited too. McDonald, it'll be now his second season overseeing the Eagles. And everyone, Chris McFarland, Kevin McDonald, relatively newly in their roles, had to manage incredibly difficult seasons because of all of these injuries. And so I'm excited to see, even from the front office level, what next year looks like if they are a bit more fortunate with health.
Well, and the one that isn't a constant, that is a new face, was maybe the first thing that he brought up, and you could tell he was a bit excited to talk about it, was the hire of Steve Konowalchuk. When I asked him about it, immediately went into his credentials. Almost 800 games, head coach here, assistant coach here, has been a scout here. These are the types of guys that when you do need to make changes, which promoting Schneekloth left a vacancy, you can't just simply bump everybody up. These are the types of hires that I think do get you excited. Like Steve Konowalchuk, again, his stint with the Avs was pretty limited, but again, almost 800 games in the NHL, tons of coaching experience, tons of NHL, executive, scout, behind the bench experience. I think this was an ad that he seemed excited about.
I'm excited about it too, from the player development standpoint, because of his familiarity with Major Junior.
Totally.
There's going to be obviously some adjustment to the pro level, but there is now a familiarity with players that are at this stage of their development.
The communication.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Communicating with young players has become essential in today's coach, especially an American League coach, where you are dealing with young players freshly into the professional league. There's an adjustment period, and there's an effective communication style that is necessary. And I think that's why he's going to be such a great addition. And truthfully, I look at his identity as a player and think that it's going to add a little bit of an edge too, in how he wants his forward group to play, especially since that's going to be where he's working kind of closely. I think that was something, I don't want to say was lacking. I actually think too, in the teams that watch the Colorado Eagles and pick players from them, a quality I've heard from other organizations is that there is some level of physicality that the Eagles have played with as part of their identity. And I think they're going to lean into that a little bit more. I think that goal scoring is still going to be important, but there's going to be lots of opportunities for a player like Oskar Olausson, who is in dire need of a good year to break through and be the guy that they can look to provide goal scoring. Right now, there's really no other excuse for it if it's not him.
Well, and to your point of, what Connor Walchuk can maybe bring in terms of a bit of an edginess and, kind of helping some, I think Olausson's a good example of like kind of what we saw with Rantanen last year. You can play with your size without running guys through the glass.
100%.
And maybe Steve Konowalchuk can help, pass some of that along. But I like that point that he's not just more of the same. And not that having more of the same is a bad thing or anything like that. Not saying that, keeping this name in Schneekloth is bad. But like, it's nice to have a little bit of an edge, a little bit of a wrinkle to what you're doing. And then just going back to what you're talking about with the communication, element of that. How many times have you and I talked about that in just the last 18 months, Megan, about Jared Bednar and how his ability to communicate with all different types of players at different stages is part of the reason why he's such an effective head coach. How Greg Cronin had to readjust his coaching style to be able to communicate and break through to players better, at a younger age, at a different stage in their development. And I think you're 100% spot on when you say bringing in a guy like Steve Konowalchuk, who doesn't just have all the accolades at the pro level, but has been coaching at the WHL level for the last couple of years. Having that ability to communicate with players who are developing, I think is huge. It's a great call out.
And actually, something you said a second ago triggered a different thought. But in talking about the prospects and getting them NHL ready, what realistically is a role in the NHL for a Jean-Luc Foudy or an Oskar Olausson presently, even previously Sempo Ranta? It's a depth role, and they need to be a bit of a role player. And when they're on the Eagles, if you're looking for them to be the AHL leading goal scorers, they are in a top 6 role, they are maybe not tending to the blue collar things that they need to do as a depth player that they're going to be required to do at the NHL level. I think
especially
that's
with
where
Bednar system.
A new hire like Konowalchuk actually comes in clutch, especially to maybe help players lean into that part of the game that's going to be demanded of them at the NHL level. This is true of Oskar Olausson. Like, he is going to have to be physical and willing to do the blue collar things because he is going to start out as more of a depth role. Obviously, you want to see middle 6 potential in a Foudy or an Olausson, generally speaking, but before they're even given the trust and the opportunity to do that, they have to demonstrate an aptitude as a 3rd, 4th line guy. And I think that's where they're going to be taught these habits even more so. And someone like Konowalchuk can probably help them a lot with that.
Man, I know there's a lot of fans and I've even argued with AJ and Rudo and about this kind of stuff. But I think what you just said is important for a player's development. People forget Nathan MacKinnon spent time on a 3rd line at the very beginning of his rookie season. Mikko Rantanen played in the AHL, and there's kind of a running joke about who his original NHL line mates were. I think that's something that if you're getting called up, unless that's your true identity, right? Where I'm even trying to think of an example of where that would be the case. If the NHL had some kind of rules where like Connor Bedard had to start in the American League or something like that, yeah, that's probably a little bit different because you're projecting him to be a first line scorer.
Right.
But for guys like JL Foudy, Oskar Olausson, obviously Sampo Ranta is back in Europe this year, but players like that, I really do think that is a real part of the Avs development plan. Is perfect. You mastered the AHL level. Now can you come bump and grind and play in front of the net and play heavy along the wall? We want to see that you have that element to your game because especially in a Jared Bednar system, that's what's expected of everybody. Again, a lot of people the year the Avs won the Cup talked about, Nathan MacKinnon wasn't the same dominant MacKinnon that he always was. But when you talk to Nate, he said, I think that was my best playoffs ever because he played all 200 feet. He played heavy along the wall. He wasn't afraid to get to the front of the net. He wasn't afraid to be physical in front of his own net, get out, block shots. And those are all just little things that you need to make sure that players that are getting that promotion are not only able to do, but are willing to do.
Yes.
And having a guy like Konowalchuk coming in and maybe preaching some level of that at the American League level, saying, when you get to the NHL, this is what Jared's going to want you to do. I know, Foudy, you got great hands. I know you're fast and you're really exciting. You've got to be able to do these little things in case you're called upon to do that.
Right. You were this guy in juniors, but if you want to be in the NHL one day, you have to be this guy here.
Right, right.
And it's a sentiment that I think is echoed throughout the entirety of the Eagles staff moving forward. And even looking at recent history and players that the organization has targeted, down to an Anton Bleed type, but now recently an Andre Pavel, there is something specific that they're looking for in their players. And it comes down to who we've seen get the most opportunity and the most trust under Bednar's system has been players that are allowed every shift. He feels at least are going to make a physical impact shift by shift at the very least, if they can't provide production. And that's going to be an interesting transition because obviously we want the young guys with skills like Foodie to score. We want the young guys like skill, like a Ben Myers who scored in college without an issue. We want them to score at the next level, but there are other things that keep them responsible and accountable that they have to do first before they're even given minutes.
You have to find a way to be impactful without being on the score sheet, and I think that's something that the Avs try to stay away from one-dimensional guys. You only notice them if they're making, if they're putting up points, and not to find no reason to bury the guy. But I think of a guy like Martin Kaut. His games where people thought he stood out were, oh, he had a goal and an assist. Oh, he had an assist, and he was good on the power play. And then games where he didn't show up on the score sheet, I feel like you didn't even notice him in the game. And that was at least always my issue with Martin Kaut was he has to score to be noticeable. And I think that's not what the Avs are looking for. And I think, not to stray too far from the original point, having a guy like Schneekloth partnered with a guy like Steve Konowalchuk, I think does that. Megan, before we move on, I want you to give me just kind of off the top of your head 3 to 5 guys that you would think you look for these guys to be the first round of call-ups.
Interesting.
I've got 3 off the top of my head that I'm positive are your 3 too, but I just kind of want to know if you have anybody else or if it really is kind of 3, and if we're going beyond that, oof, we're in trouble.
This feels like a cop-out because I wanted to do something fun with maybe some of the new pieces, but it is not really new. Mm-hmm. It's Anunen, Foodie, and Malinsky.
You don't have a Lawson in there?
Not in my top 3.
Yeah, no.
If I branch out beyond that.
So if you go to 5, what about if you go to 5?
Oh, 5, yes. I definitely have a Lawson in there. And then my 5th.
Is there a 5th that you can say like?
Not with that much certainty. Because they gave Lawson his debut, I feel confident he will get called up. And honestly, I think he benefited or was harmed by the misfortune of last year too. So totally. I'm excited to see him get another chance at things. But yeah, that's my top 4. 5th, I do believe there could be a 5th. Mm-hmm. It's in between a couple players. Honestly, I don't want to forget that Fairbrother is a new piece from the New Hook trade that is just a relatively unknown. Hopefully there isn't something going grievously wrong with the Avs defense that requires any of this, because similar thing with Keaton Middleton. He's so similar to England. I could see them looking to him as that guy, but that means something's gone wrong. So not loving that. Depends on where you put Brad Hunt in the conversation. Is he up floating with the Avs? Is he going to be with the Eagles? That would be another one that I'd consider in there. And I'll stop there.
I like your 4 with those couple honorable mentions, Fairbrother. I think Malinsky is the one that I will go ahead and say I will be surprised if he doesn't make his NHL debut this year. Yeah. That probably means that things didn't go well for him, or the Avs had outstanding injury luck on the back end. But Malinsky, I guess I kind of forgot about Anunen. Yeah, put him in there, but then otherwise Foodie, Olausson, and then after that, throw names into a hat.
All right, is Fredrik Olofsson up with the Avs? Is he down with the Eagles? Is Chris Wagner somebody that they call upon in a pinch because he is the Anton Bleed kind of similar player? Hopefully not. That hopefully only in small amounts. Mm-hmm. That's something that we even consider.
If needed. I think that's a good list here. Anything else today, Megan, on the Eagles, Schneekloth, anything like that? I thought that was a great interview. I mean, he was great.
I'm excited to see how they marry the interests of these two teams moving forward. That's obviously been a priority for the organization and will continue to be. And because of some of the changes, I think that's where it might even take on a slightly new look. Like, everything I'm predicting here is the organization trying to lean into ways to get players better ready for the Avs if need be. And I'm curious to see if that comes to fruition, if these players do look more pro-ready at every call-up, because I think that's what people have been crying out for when we talk about failures of development with prospects. It is because they have not been able to hang at the NHL level with the way that Jared Bednar needs them to play. And I'm excited to see if all of these changes bring about an even closer union between the interests of both these teams, and if it benefits the Eagles and they have even more success moving forward.
Totally. No, it should be a fun year up in Loveland. I'm looking forward to seeing, like you said, how the new changes, really kind of impact the overall look of the group. But let's move on. Before we move on, I do want to remind you guys, this is a DNVR Avalanche podcast. Today we're brought to you guys by our good friends over at Backus and Schenker. They are here to help. They've been winning for Colorado families for over 25 years, and they've won over $1 billion for their clients. Best part is, I honestly can't believe this every week when we talk about Backus and Schenker. No fee while they work your case. No upfront fee to speak with Backus and Schenker about your case. You don't pay unless they win money for you. So again, like I said, if you want to see if you have a case while they're working your case, seeing what the details are, you don't pay for any of that until they win for you, and they've been winning for over 25 years. They now have even more locations in Colorado to help with help more families be able to get in, see them in person. They now have neighborhood offices in Denver, Aurora, Inglewood, and Fort Collins. They have the strength of over 30 lawyers and more than 100 staff to help win your case. They help with all kinds of injury cases where you weren't at fault: car accidents, motorcycles, rideshare, pedestrians, trucks, even if you're on a scooter or one of the e-bikes zipping around town like Megan was this summer. If you were injured, you weren't at fault. They can help you. Find out if they can help. And also, if you're injured at work and it wasn't your fault, give Backus and Schenker a call, 222-2222, or right there, website on the screen, coloradolaw.net, to find out if you have a case for free. And just keep in mind, all they do is win. Backus and Schenker, they just win over $1 billion for all their clients. 222-2222. We're also brought to you guys by our good friends over at Shady Rays. Again, we were talking about being outside, sipping on your Breckenridge brew. Make sure your eyes are protected with Shady Rays. This actually is something that I usually leave out of this read, and I don't know why. Eye health is so unbelievably important, and having a pair of sunglasses that block UV rays, it's not something that people talk about anywhere near enough. You put sunscreen on everywhere when you go outside, but you can't do anything for your eyes. It's so important. Make sure you are picking up a pair of Shady Rays, and you can do it right now using the code DNVR. You're going to get 50% off 2 pairs of polarized shades, so you can try for yourself the shades that have been rated 5 stars by over 250,000 people. If you are here locally, you can stop into their brick and mortar store in the Park Meadows Mall here in Lone Tree, Colorado. Great store, great staff, super friendly, happy to chat. I talk about it all the time. They're big sports fans, DNVR fans. I've stopped in there and chatted with them a few times. So again, if you are here locally, or again, we've just been talking all kinds of stuff about, hey, if you're here in Denver, we're always getting asked what recommendations you have. Stop into the Park Meadows Mall, go into Shady Rays, and see what it's all about in there. Try them on. And if you don't love your Shady Rays, you can exchange them or return them for free within 30 days. No risk when you shop. You can try them on, see if you like them, see if you like the color, the lenses, all of that stuff. Take good care of your eyes this summer and protect them with some Shady Rays. DNVR Avalanche podcast, Wednesday here, Jesse and Megan. We've talked a lot about the Eagles. Great interview with Aaron's newest head coach, Aaron Schneekloth. Megan, before we get out of here for the day, let's just take a quick little lap around the league. Not a ton of news.
Except for while we were on the show.
I saw your face while I was doing that read, and I figured something happened.
Troy Terry.
Oh.
So they've
right.
come to an agreement.
Perfect. This was our topic anyways.
But I haven't seen the number yet. 7-year contract.
Woo!
Avoid arbitration, but I just haven't seen the number come through yet.
It's a pre-arb deal.
Honestly, I'm surprised. And I'm excited to see what the AAV comes in at. But in knowing how far apart they were
right
before, I had heard that he had requested a trade previously. Don't know how recently that is. 7 years is a long time to commit to.
Totally.
And so I have to imagine the dollar amount is correct. And the other thing, too, is I wonder if there is a pretty friendly no movement clause that benefits him. Like trade lists, teams that he would not be interested in.
Yeah.
Like if he did some things in the contract to protect himself over the course of those 7 years, I think is inevitable. But I wonder, too, if it's one that particularly favors Terry in this situation.
Yeah, I'm refreshing here to see. Oh, maybe. Well, look, we were going to talk about Troy Terry in this segment anyways, because the arbitration happened and the numbers were pretty far off. 4.5 was the offer from the Ducks. $8 million was the ask for Troy Terry. Arbitration numbers are always far apart. That's right. It's meant to be that way because both sides know it's usually split. I mean, it's actually funny that they even have like the arbitration process because they usually go through all of it and usually it literally is split right down the middle. But that ask seemed a little bit further apart than what we normally see to me. Hearing what you're saying about, you know, there was maybe a trade request, things like that, that maybe lines up that Troy Terry, his agent, see himself as worth a lot more than maybe what the Anaheim Ducks did. I mean, we're going to have to wait to see what this deal comes in at. But like you said, 7 years isn't insignificant. No,
I'm really excited for him, though.
How do you feel about Troy Terry? Is he closer to the $8 million he wants or closer to the 4.5 that Anaheim wanted? And I will be sending the transcript of this to the DU alumni page, just so you know.
And to Troy Terry personally.
Yeah.
I actually feel like it is pretty split down the middle. And it's hard to say how this is going to age, but I feel like in the immediate, he's closer to the 8 side of things in the immediate than he is the 4.5.
$7 million AAV.
Wow. Well, I'm 100% correct then in everything that I just said. That's a lot closer to the 8.
Nailed it.
Well, I honestly, though, I did think the 8, I don't know when it came in, like 8 point something too.
Right.
Was high. I won't make any illusions about that, but...
So, I mean, that really does seem like they are paying him for what they think he's going to be after year 5. You know, so that to me says...
That's a great contract for him.
Right. And again, if he continues to progress, he's still young, what, 23, 24?
Oh, I think he's a tiny bit older, but let's see.
You know, he's still going to continue to get better, and you hope that you're going to settle into, especially once the cap goes up 3-4 years from now, it's 25. Like 25. So, okay, I mean...
That's still a young player. I know we joke around.
Young player, really kind of at the beginning of his prime. Your prime is considered to be 25 to 30. And then after that, as we discussed sadly yesterday, that's by hockey standards, the back 9.
Right.
But I lost my train of thought when I got that text message. You know, you're hoping that when he gets into the middle of his prime there, 20, 27, 28, 29 years old, that you are feeling really good about $7 million for a guy like Troy Terry. He was a guy, honestly, Megan, that I was, when the Avs were still trying to figure out what they were doing at 2C, he was a guy that I had marked. I was like, I would like to see them pursue a guy like Troy Terry because he is still young, because you still can dream on a little bit of upside for him, and just great skill. And I love a good Highlands Ranch native.
No, I do love the storyline that brings him back to Colorado in some way, because I genuinely believe he is a talented player with a skill set that would fit in nicely in Colorado, but it will also fit in nicely in Anaheim's young core. Totally. And because
he lines up really well with
exactly. Like we talked about some of the players who've seen success come through Colorado in the Stasnys and even a JT Compher who has a career year playing alongside some of the talent that's here. And I feel that can be true of Terry moving forward with some of that young core that he's going to get the chance to play alongside, grow alongside in ways he might even be blazing a trail forward because he is a little bit older. But as far as where he's at with his age and his skill, there's still so much upside. It's an exciting opportunity for him, and it's a great contract.
No, it is. Well, I mean, it's nice that we have a number, but he really kind of took the wind out of our sails of this topic a bit here. So let's just
how much is Troy Terry worth? Well, we've got an exact value now. So
I know exactly how much Troy Terry is worth. Last one that I really got here for you, Megan, is we haven't talked about the Logan Cooley signing, or at least not a show that I was on.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to circle back to this because we did talk about it when he initially decided to return to Michigan, I almost said ASU, to Michigan for another year. And that really felt like a gut punch to the Coyotes after the vote and all of that stuff. I'm excited to see him sign with the Arizona Coyotes. Their defense and their goaltending is still really bad. I think he makes their forward core really exciting.
I'm going to put a question mark on their goaltending too, because I think Vejmelka has.
I'll do that with you.
Has potential to, because they have had some luck too with goaltending and what they're able to get from their goaltenders. Though the timing of when they're able to get that from their goaltenders has maybe not benefited them. So I'll put a question mark there. But you're right, the forward group has just gotten a lot better. I'll say I'm genuinely surprised by it because of where the organization is at presently.
Totally.
But I'm excited because I think this benefits the Coyotes. Like, I think it will bring about positive fan engagement and excitement, interaction, and them finalizing things with McBain also does this. This is where this young core starts to reveal itself, and because there's still, Michelli there too to get excited about. So there's in the young players too, like there's players already heading things up at the top in their top 6 to get excited about, but I think it's interesting. Like, it's a little sooner than I expected, but I hope this benefits the Coyotes and maybe solidifying that there's still hope for the future, and it's in their youth.
Clayton Keller, Nick Schmaltz, Jason Zucker, Logan Cooley, Lawson Krause, Matthias Michelli, Alex Kerfoot.
Kerfoot, I forgot about that. Yeah. That's awesome.
Like you said, McBain, Bukestad, depending on how you feel about Nick Bukestad as a player, that's a competitive forward core. I'm not gonna make any like crazy jumps here. That's a competitive forward core that, given the way that team played last year, I think there's plenty of reason to be excited. And Logan Cooley could end up being like a special player.
Absolutely, that's the hope, right? And I'm curious to see how they match up with the Avs next season, because they've already been kind of annoying when these teams face each other, and that makes them just a little more annoying, but hopefully in the best way.
Right. Honestly, I want them to be good because I think there is amazing potential for a rivalry with the Avs and the Yotes. Because like you said, the Coyotes have been terrible the last 5 years when the Avs have really been on their upswing. Yet every time those teams get together, they're exciting games. They're nasty. There's an edge to them. Someone usually ends up bleeding. Nathan McKinnon's gotten in like 3 fights with the Arizona Coyotes. Sam Girard has gotten in a fight against the Coyotes. Gabe Landeskog and Eric Johnson have beat the shit out of people on the Coyotes. I would love for the Coyotes to get into a competitive window, because proximity, those are the 2 closest teams. And now they're in the same division. I really want to see Arizona get to a competitive state so that we can, because the Avs haven't had a true rival. Minnesota for a couple years there. You hoped it could have been Vegas, but the playoff matchups have just never really matched up. If Arizona can get there, I think there is real potential for some bad blood between those 2 teams, and I think it'd be fun.
And if the wheels get turning in the right direction, and I think they started to turn with the success they had at home in Mullet Arena, maybe this will just plant the seed of hope necessary to bring about whatever necessary investors might be needed to make plans possible for them to get a permanent home in Arizona.
Kind of have a bit of like a us versus everybody mentality this year, and kind of use that to rally a bit.
Yep.
No, I love that. Megan, anything else? Any final thoughts for today? Actually, while you think of if you have final thoughts, I'm going to tell people why it's the best time to become a DNVR diehard. Because
no final thoughts. All die hard. Go into it.
I also want full credit for not forgetting this week and having to be reminded at the last second as we're signing off. But it is the best time to become a DNVR diehard. We have so much exciting stuff planned for you guys this year. We actually, just in our meeting yesterday, we're talking about we need to, we're at the point in the offseason where it is time to start ramping up and prioritizing some of our diehard content again on the site. In addition to the takeovers, party buses, different things like that we've got going. You get a free shirt every year. It really has. We just announced a new hire for today. A former Bronco, Todd Davis, is joining the DNVR Broncos full time. So it's really never been a better time to become a diehard. Go to thednvr.com, get signed up. Like I said, you're going to get a free shirt, and you're going to get access to all kinds of exclusive diehards only content. Plus, you're going to get discounts on events, things like that. You're going to get, the heads up first in order to buy into different things that we're doing. We changed the model last year, And really now it's just all about perks. If you're a DNVR diehard, you get bonus content, you get discounts, you get free stuff. It's no longer just a paywall to read. We really want you to feel like you are part of the DNVR family. So go on over to the DNVR.com and get signed up to become a diehard today. Any final thoughts? Eagles, news around the league, anything like that?
No. I think I nailed it.
I think
I was pretty chatty today.
I think you did too. I think that was some of the most that you chatted, and I loved every second of it. For Meghan Angley, I'm Jesse Montano. This is the DNVR Avalanche podcast. You'll be back at it tomorrow with AJ and Rudo, I believe.
Yes.
Awesome. And then we've got our classic AJ Rudo show on Friday that everybody always loves for Free Skate Friday. Make sure you guys are tuning in. Thanks so much for listening. We'll talk to you guys later.